CASE is exceptionally proud to partner with Construction Equipment Magazine on a technology survey. And you'll hear the results thanks to Rod Sutton, editorial director at Construction Equipment, but you'll hear all the results for the first time right here at CONEXPO. So, Rod?
Thank you, Jody, for the introduction. I appreciate that. It is my pleasure and honor to be here to present this study. This is an exclusive study that we did specifically because of this show. Technology and construction is the big takeaway from CONEXPO 2017. CASE partnered with us on this study, so we are together presenting these results, and I again want to thank CASE for their partnership for helping us do this. Construction Equipment has been covering telematics for 10 years, and we're very keen on what's going on with not only machine data but other technology. We have sister publications in other areas of construction, so we are also aware of construction technology that does not necessarily affect the equipment manager. But I believe that we are on the verge of a transformation in this industry, and that transformation is actually going to hinge on machine data. So in addition to construction equipment subscribers, we also reached out to subscribers in the non-residential space, in the water infrastructure space, and also in the road and bridges space. Our sister publication, Road and Bridges, is actually doing some presentations up here as well. But with all those subscription bases, we were able to get a very good look at the overall construction industry. The idea here is we want to treat 2017 as a benchmark. So CONEXPO 2017 says, imagine what's next. We're going to benchmark where we are today, and over the course of time, we're going to keep our eyes on these trends and see how things happen. Now, I mentioned all those subscriber bases. We have an email blast that went out to all those subscribers, and they were invited to participate in an online survey. So let's take a look at some of those respondents. We had 146 people respond to the survey and either fill out all of it or a portion of it. 101 people filled out the entire questionnaire. And as we tracked results, we realized that we were really reaching the people who knew and understand technology, because as that base of respondents grew, the percentages did not change. So we're very confident that the numbers we have are representative and will serve as an excellent benchmark going forward. This first slide gives you an idea of the company size of people who responded. You'll see that about a third of them have contract volume greater than $25 million, and 1 in 5 have contract volume less than $1 million. So that gives us a pretty broad range to look at. On company size, we asked how many employees were in your organization, and you'll see that a third of the respondents work in organizations with less than 25 people, and 27% have in organizations with greater than 500. So we're pretty confident that this base of 100 is giving us a very good benchmark number going forward. So now let's look at some of the data. I mentioned that we have been tracking telematics for 10 years. We really believe that we're at this transformational stage. I liken it to a wave that a surfer is on, and you need to be on top of that wave, because when it crashes, you need to be able to ride it. And machine data is where that's going to be driven. It's going to be the linchpin in any construction organization's ability to implement technology in their sites going forward. So we wanted to understand right now all the nuances of telematics in order to benchmark it. As I said, it's the primary reason we did the study. We've covered telematics, which is basically just the transmission of data. The data itself is machine data, but telematics is the means by which that data goes into software and other systems. And we've done research over the years to keep an eye on implementation, and it's been very, very slow. We've worked with the AEMP group for this 10 years. They partnered with AEM in 2014 on the telematics standard. And for those of you who don't know it, that standard is now an ISO standard as of last year. So it's 15143-3 is now a global standard. It's been accepted by the European Union. So now that standard can be used to get this data into any system, whether it's an OEM transmitter or a third-party transmitter, and will enable construction companies to standardize the data and implement it. And we're hopeful that with the ISO standard out there, that implementation will actually be faster. As you can see, at this point, that implementation is very low. 39% of our respondents have telematics capabilities on 0 machines. And if you add in the folks who have telematics capability on less than 10%, you're looking at 2/3 of the respondents have very minimal telematics capabilities. So as a benchmark, that's pretty low. Only about 15%, 16% have telematics on half or more of their machines. So there's a huge void out there of telematics usage. But then we dug in and we asked, among those who are actually using telematics, how are they using it? And this is the future. So what you're seeing is the simple applications, such as scheduling, maintenance, monitoring, location, and fuel usage, is being used among folks who are using telematics. But the surprise to me is the number of people who are using some of the higher applications. And this is where I think you're going to see the future unfold. When fleets start using telematics data for predictive maintenance, utilization, and life cycle costing, those sorts of numbers are going to drive profitability. Those sorts of numbers are going to drive estimates and bids that are going to maintain the razor-thin margins that construction firms have. And this is going to be a competitive advantage. The key application that machine data is going to drive is site management systems. This is why machine data is going to be the linchpin, because when you get the site management systems working, the machine data, location to the higher level functions, is going to be inputted into the software driving the site management system. So we asked, without regard to whether it's a digital system or a traditional system, how people are using site management. And we saw that 41% of the folks are using outside vendors to implement their site management systems, and 24% are developing their own in-house. We then asked about digital and technology when it comes to site management, and we found that 45% of our respondents said that they are using technology to facilitate communication on site or within a project. Again, we focused then on the people who are using these systems and asked them how. What are some of the features that you're using in your site management systems? Not surprising is scheduling. We had 44% who say they're using site management systems for scheduling. That's not a surprise. I mean, it's still a relatively low number, but that's what you would expect them to primarily be using it for. But we also took advantage of the study to delve into some of the machine data that would be used within a site management system. So we asked about machine monitoring, we asked about machine control, equipment inspections, and even autonomous and remote control. And you'll see those results on this slide. Just a comment on machine control. It's been over 10 years that we've been tracking machine control, and that, if you think about it, took many years to become widely accepted. I would venture to say that for the serious earth-moving contractor, machine control is a given, it's a must-have, and that some of the firms that have not implemented machine control probably aren't around right now, or else they've been gobbled up by somebody else. This is a technology that is imperative to an earth-moving contractor who wants to maintain his bid competitiveness. I'm suggesting the machine data is going to have a similar effect on fleet management and on the organizations that use construction equipment. Those who do not have that data and are able to use it are going to be at a competitive disadvantage. So if site management and machine data are such a transformational area, we wanted to know who's responsible. Who's responsible for implementing technology strategy within the organizations that we surveyed? And there's no surprise here that it is at the top. The company owner, half of them say that their company owner's in charge. And we have 36% who say it's a C-level type of person with a technology focus. What we have found with machine control or machine data with telematics systems, as we've worked with equipment managers in the past 10 years, is the investment in a machine data system has been hard to sell to their management. So that ROI is tough. A lot of the reason it's not being implemented is because the equipment manager cannot convince his boss that it's worth the investment. Now we know it is, but trying to sell that ROI to a CEO or a CFO has been difficult. What I'm going to suggest is going to happen is that as site management systems become more prevalent across vocations and across industries, any construction company that uses equipment is going to at some point flip that switch and say, we want to go to site management. If machine data is the linchpin, then their fleet manager better be ready to jump on board, because he's going to be the first person that CEO or company owner is going to turn to. We then looked at how data is currently being used within organizations. Again, building on this idea that machine data is the linchpin, we want to know how and if machine data is even available to those outside the equipment department. The reason that's important is because equipment is what ultimately builds the projects. We use data from the CFMA that says 80% of an equipment owning firm, 80% of their capital assets rather, is in the equipment. So that's a huge financial investment. And the financial success of the organization rests on the financial success of that fleet. Again, machine data is going to make that possible. So on this slide, you'll see how data is used within an organization. 61% of them say that data is available in an enterprise system that anyone can access and make decisions on. But for 38%, and I suspect that number is actually higher, 38% of the data, or 38% of the respondents say the data is in silos. A key example of this is a shop system where work orders are tracked on a maintenance software program, so that labor is assigned not only to a project, but to a machine, and even to a machine category by technician. On the back end, HR needs to know, or rather accounting needs to know, payroll, how much time each technician has spent. And if you are not able to link those two databases, you are going to have some inefficiencies when it comes to actual costing. So that was the benchmarking side of the survey as far as machine data goes. The next thing we wanted to do was just throw a bunch of emerging technologies out there and just see how many people are using them and what they're using them for. So we have several emerging technologies that we asked about. The first one is the recording devices comparable to a GoPro. So we said that, or we found that 30% of our respondents are using a GoPro-like device. And then when we asked those 30% how they're using it, we found that about half of them are using it for site prep and mapping. And again, that's not really a surprise. If you look around here, that's probably the first function you would use a drone-mounted GoPro for. We then looked at virtual reality. You find that in the tech experience. There's a demonstration out there that's pretty amazing. So we asked how many people are using virtual reality. We found about 8% are currently using virtual reality within their business. And we're not talking about gaming and that sort of thing. We're talking about business use. So within that 8%, we found that project modeling is the most common application. I suspect that is from the contractors who are in the non-residential space. There's a lot of architecture back and forth with architects there, and I suspect that virtual reality, in fact I know, is playing a big part in that space. As a side, we also asked about augmented reality and got a 0. So nobody is using augmented reality, but from a fleet perspective, this is where we're going to see some pretty substantial growth in the very near future. Augmented reality, for those of you who aren't aware of it, is simply an overlay on a set of goggles. So a person is using the goggles, they can see, but then there's an overlay that is also displayed on the goggle. On the maintenance side, this is going to be huge. There are already applications out there where a technician can look at a component, see the schematic overlaid on the goggles, and be able to interact with the schematic as he is interacting with the component. They also are able to access and sometimes the service manuals. So that we're going to see some growth on it. 0 is a great benchmark because we go nowhere but up. Apps are huge. We knew that would be huge. So we actually found that 1/3 of our respondents are using apps in fleet management. So that's where we focused on. So among those who are using apps in fleet management, we asked how. And the most common usages you see on the screen, but they include inspections, they include planning and tracking work orders, and then communicating with both maintenance personnel and then their customers, the folks whose machines they are fixing. We looked at the cloud-based storage, and about half of the respondents said their firm is using the cloud for storage. Not surprising, file storage and transfer and email were the most common usages of cloud storage. There are some organizations that are using cloud storage for collaboration, and that is going to be key to the site management systems. We asked about UAVs or drones. 78% of respondents are currently using drones in their business. The most common applications are site inspections, surveying and mapping, and site security. Drones are also being deployed to inspect infrastructure, so they can do site or bridge inspections and that sort of thing. It's a great way to get a person out of harm's way. You send in a drone and they can see what things are doing. Safety tools. This is the final technology we asked about. 85% of respondents said they're using safety tools that are connected to technology. Half of them are using it for equipment safety devices, backup cameras, proximity alarms, that sort of thing. 35% of them are using them for connected personnel protection devices. This is going to grow. This is where you have an RFID driver or beacon in a vest, and it will alert equipment operators if there's somebody in the way. So we are going to be keeping our eye on that. So that's the survey. We have an executive summary that gives you more data, and that is available for download from our website, or you can give me a business card and we will happily send that to you either way. But that wraps up the study, and I thank you for your time and attention, and thank you again, Case, for letting us present this here today.